mm. The streets are saying that the United States Supreme Court has lost its mind. What are they talking about? What is the legal and the historical significance of the two recent Supreme Court decisions overturning the Chevron Doctrine and expanding presidential immunity? And what exactly is the link between these decisions and the Black American Civil Rights Playbook? Well, I'm so glad you asked because we are talking about it after the break.
Brokers, welcome to another episode of Brokish, where we talk about the unbelievable ish this country has done to keep us broke. Now here are your hosts, Amber and Erika.
Hello, brokers. I'm Amber.
And I'm Erika.
And today on Brokish, we are talking all things Supreme Court.
Well, Amber, I feel like it's been a little while since you took us to school. So I'm very glad to be in class today, present and accounted for.
Yes. And I'm doing my
So,
DEI mission by being a teacher with braids. It's our, contribution to CRT and woke indoctrination. Erica's head is wrapped. I have braids.
I was just about to tell you, I see you got your vacation hair. I see you cute, ready for the summer, ready to get out into the sun.
Amen. I will be on vacation tomorrow. And like every Black woman in America, my toe tips are white and my hair is braided. And it is time to go on vacation. Amen.
Amber, to be
Yeah.
clear, I have never had white toe tips, nor have I had braids.
Do we claim you like that though?
Oh, yeah, that is so hurtful. I know this light got me lit up today, but you don't have to do me like that. You don't
We're
have
gonna
to.
get you there. We're gonna get you there. We are gonna get you there. You have a beautiful daughter who braids hair, and I have faith that Eden is gonna bring you into the light one day and
I,
braid your
she,
hair.
she too heavy-handed. Like I want her to braid my hair, but she too heavy-handed. I need to go to somebody that cares about people who might be a little tender-handed. That's what I need. Like all y'all rough. I don't like it rough. So I'm gonna leave that there.
Anyway, how you been doing, sis? What you been doing?
I've been doing okay. I want to say I've been doing great, and on the one hand, I have been doing great, Amber. But at the same time, things have been super stressful. So, like so stressful, like you can't see my nails. My nail polish is gone. I can't. I don't have time to do any of this stuff. But I'm excited because I went to my conference in Ireland, so that was super good. I was
Worldwide?
I was excited to be able to, present my work as academics say, and get feedback, hang out, meet new people. So excited about that. But I just have so many things going on that I've been letting stuff fall through the cracks. So, girl, like 2 weeks ago, we were at the airport after having been through two airports before. And something was just like, look at your license. Girl, my license had been expired for like a whole month. I had no idea that my license was expired. So I'm sitting around here. He had rented a car. We were on vacation, girl. I'm driving him around in the car, don't have no license. I'm just like, and the Erica of past, like that would never happen to me. And I just feel like I'm not in control of my life. And that is also evidenced by the fact that for the first time since we've had this podcast, it's been almost 6 years, Amber, we do not have a new show last payday because I
We
just
did
didn't
not.
have it. I just did not have it. And
And you see, the
I'm
world did
like,
not collapse. It didn't fall apart. God is still
we
on the
fall
throne.
apart for you, but we don't know about the brokers. Like, people might really be out here struggling, jonesing. We just don't know what is happening with the brokers, but I'm not in control of my life and I really need to get it back. Yeah.
Well, I feel like part of that testimony is goodness because I can't believe the TSA agents let you through with an expired license because they.
Apparently, it doesn't matter if it's expired. It just has to like have the right real ID stuff. I don't know.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know.
Oh, okay. Because these TSA people I've been running up against, they listen to Nuck If You Buck and eat Wheaties before they get to that counter, and they don't be playing. So I'm just glad you
Yeah,
didn't get hemmed up.
that's true. That's true. I did not get
Yes.
hemmed up, and I got it taken care of. My new license came yesterday, so all is well in the world.
Amen. Look, see,
Yeah.
look, you're not even doing that bad. You bounce back quickly. In Jesus' name, you
But
bounce back.
it's just not me. I'm like losing myself with all the things I have going on, and I don't like.
I mean, I get it. It's it's the season of life. You got children, you're in school, you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot, but you're gonna be all right. You're gonna be all right.
So, like I said, I went to Ireland and I came back, Amber, and I felt like everything just went crazy. I was like, what did I come back to? Exactly. And
Yeah.
so, like today, I just wanted to start talking about all the crazy stuff that I came back to. And the first crazy thing that happened is, did you see you saw the video of Auntie Maxine at Essence Festival? Tell the people, Amber, what happened.
Um. So it first of all, it took me a while to hear what she said because I was worried about her dentures when I first saw it
Amber?
because I think I am not being disrespectful. I love Maxine Waters, but I did think her dentures moved in the video. But anyway, so Maxine Waters was out on the stump at Essence Festival, um, fully embracing her role as a Joe Biden surrogate and basically attempting to put the concerns of the Black community at rest by reminding us that Joe Biden cannot possibly be as old as he appears to be to the naked eye because she is, in fact, older than him. And she said it very matter of factly, hell, I'm older than Joe Biden, to an eruption of thunderous applause to just basically, I guess, remind the people, in the words of Aaliyah, that age ain't nothing but a number. So,
Girl, when I saw this video, first of all, I'm looking at like Auntie Maxine. Baby, this not a flex. Like
no,
this is not good. This is not a good look for you either. You also, I think I read that Auntie Maxine been in her district since 1991. What's that, 33 years? Baby, like y'all take this stuff too far. Like a lot of us are taking this stuff too far. And part of me keeps thinking about these conversations about ageism and ableism, and I don't think that it is unreasonable to think that somebody who has been in the same job, the exact same one, for 33 years, that it might be time for them to move on. And I would say that if Maxine Waters were 55 and had been in the same job for 33 years, I I'm not necessarily a person that's stuck on term limits, because I think that you need time to learn how to govern. And I think that there
sure,
is some,
sure.
like, you have to get seasoned in some way. But I think 30 years in any career is okay. And Joe Biden has been an elected official since 1973. That's 51 years, Amber. I think it's okay to say. And I don't want people calling me ageist for that.
No, I don't think it's about ageism. I think that, the government and the evangelical church is the only place where it's a flex not to have a succession plan. You know,
Cha,
it's it's the
cha.
only it's like the only place where it's a flex. And I think that it is not ageist to say that octogenarians who existed and lived in a different time need to have prepared somebody else who is living in this time to actively come behind them and take the ropes and lead and govern. Because the experiences they had, the places and the context that they are governing from, is not the same place that we are living now. And it's not because they are old, it's because things have happened that make the world different. And so, yeah, I think that we have all done ourselves a big disservice by pretending like it's a flex to have a government ran by people who have created little fiefdoms for themselves for decades. Um,
Yes, I
that
think
ain't it.
it is
That ain't
wild that
it.
Joe Biden has been an elected official so long that he has gone from being a segregationist to claiming to not be a segregationist, to being like the gays need to go to hell to like, oh, okay, it's okay. Like you've been in office for so long, you didn't have enough time to change your position on everything.
And nobody remembers. And nobody
The
remembers.
rest of the
Okay.
people are not still with us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Child.
I I feel like we forget, he Anita Hill, all the things. Like
Yes, yes, yes.
Joe got a
Mass incarceration.
pass with a capital P. A pass with a capital P. Yes.
And the part that really makes me mad too, and I'll leave it here, is like the Essence Fest. Like I love Essence Fest. I'm from Houston, so you know I've been to Essence Fest a million times. Love it. Think it's great. Can't wait for there to be an Essence Fest for me to take my kid to. Right? It feels like a rite of passage. But I just hate that we're always like, oh, that's hilarious. And I'm like, no, we should have been booing Maxine's ass. Like literally, we should have been booing Maxine because not only did she do that, but then like every other Democratic surrogate, she gets out there and blames us for all the problems. Like y'all know that Biden is better than Trump. It's y'all's responsibility. Get out there, and I'm just like, girl, this not how you gonna win me over with all of the lectures. But that's just all we get. So anyway,
But that's the talking point. She wasn't there alone. U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett was there. Um, Vice President Kamala Harris was there.
did Jasmine have one of
Um,
her shirts on? Did she come with a?
no, she did not. She did not have
Oh,
one.
okay.
Well, she didn't have one of her shirts on at the sit down panel I saw her on. She did have a shirt on while she was doing like the meet and greet.
She probably had a
Um,
booth. But anyway, that's
you know, so I have never been to Essence Fest. It is still on my to do list. I have never been to Essence Festival. I've never been to Essence Festival in my entire life. Um, yeah, because yeah, I was always interning in the summer, and then when I got grown, I've been working. And anyway, I've never been, but I still want to go. But I want us to be mindful of not letting the wolves into the hen house, because yeah, yeah.
well, anyway, I'm sad I wasn't there this year, but it's fine. Not sad that I miss Maxine's ass, Auntie Maxine's ass, yelling at people for not being good Democrats. So, so that was one thing. So what tell us all about the thing. So I come back and all I kept hearing over the past, I guess it's been maybe a couple weeks now, Chevron, Chevron, Chevron. And I'm like, what the hell is Chevron, Amber? So
First of all, you should know what Chevron is, because who told you in the group text that Chevron being overturned was forthcoming months ago? Who told you that in the group chat? I did.
way to
Absolutely,
shame me, way to shame me.
in the group chat.
But the point is, for other people who don't have the benefit and the luxury of having you in their group chat, Amber, can you explain what Chevron is?
Yeah. So I just want to back up a little bit, because
Please.
before we even explain what Chevron is, let's just go to Schoolhouse Rocks for a little bit, just so we can know
Love
what we're
it.
talking about. Y'all know how we used to watch Schoolhouse Rocks, and so we got our three branches of government, right? We have the executive branch that articulates policy, that is the head of the bureaucracy, and that makes appointments, right? And so then we have our congressional branch, or our legislative branch, that's Congress, and Congress makes the law. Ideally, when you have synergy between the executive and the legislative branch, Congress brings to life the policy that the executive articulates by creating laws that put feet on those policies, right? And then you have the judicial branch, which is sort of the branch that is created to call the balls and strikes. It is to be the check on the power of the executive and the legislative branch by saying what the law is, right? And so those are our three branches of government. And we try to create a system where our branches of government work together. And this is probably not going to shock anybody, but most of the people in Congress that are elected to Congress are elected, but their vocation is not always in politics, like policy making, being an analyst. So, a lot of times when laws are passed by the legislative branch, They're either outright poorly written, or they have holes in them, or the intent of the Congress people who made the law is not entirely clear because there aren't enough details to fill it in, right? And so then the question becomes, when you have situations like that, is how do we put the feet on this law to bring the policies to life? Like, what do we do? Where do we turn? And so that is the background of the Chevron case. And so the EPA in 1963 passed a little law called the Clean Air Act. That was back when our good segregationist LBJ, who turned out to be, a champion of civil rights, was actually, trying to do stuff like give people voting rights, clean up the air. And so, what the Clean Air Act says is basically we're going to start monitoring sources of emission, and we're going to limit the sources of emissions coming out of buildings and plants and manufacturing plants. And so, when these manufacturers want to expand their plants, in order to make
They just
sure
put them in black neighborhoods.
well, we're going to let them put them in black neighborhoods, but we're going to pretend like that's not what we're doing, because we're going to initiate an EPA review where we are going to say, hey, if you want to increase your size of your manufacturing facility before you kill the black people, we're going to pretend like we didn't know that's what you were doing by doing an EPA review to make sure the source of your emissions is not increasing. Well, fast forward about 20 years. Our favorite trash bucket president, Ronald Reagan, reinterpreted the source rule to say, well, we don't want to make it hard for businesses to expand because, we are adherents of trickle down economics. And so we believe that if the businesses expand and build bigger manufacturing plants, there will be more jobs. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we are going to give businesses an opportunity to bypass EPA review of increasing their source of emissions by saying to them, hey, businesses, if you increase by building, we'll pretend like that increase isn't happening if you promise that somewhere else you'll decrease your emissions. And then we'll pretend that that's a net zero effect.
Of course.
Well, there was there was a very lovely non-governmental organization that said that's not true and we like breathing fresh air, so we're going to sue you. And then Chevron joined in as a defendant in that lawsuit and said, yes, we are excuse me, as a plaintiff,
Right.
they joined in and said we're going to sue because we don't want this. Now the lower courts said, hey, there is a lot of law out here that says that this is not how source was intended to be construed, like a balancing act. Source goes building by building. So if you have 4 buildings on your property, source is, what is the source of emissions from building 1? What is the source of emissions from building 2? Not, can we just look at your whole entire facility and say, well, because there's no emissions in building 0, that means that it's okay that there's a lot in building 4. So the lower court said that's how it's been done for the last 20 years. So we're not going to let the Reagan administration rewrite that and pretend like the Reagan administration EPA can just make its own interpretation. And then the Supreme Court said, well, hold on a second. When Congress writes laws, we have to do what's called the Chevron two-step. And I remember this from law school. So there's a two-step
Oh shit.
dance that you have to do with Chevron. And so the first step you have to ask yourself is, when Congress wrote this law, did they clearly say what they wanted to happen with the law? And if the answer to that is yes, then it is what it is. That's where you stop. The law says what it says, and we do what the law says. Then the next question is, well, if the law doesn't clearly say what needs to be done, has the agency charged with bringing that law to life filled in the hole or the gap with a definition or an interpretation? And if the answer to that question is yes, the 2A is that definition reasonable? And if the answer to that question is yes, then the Supreme Court said the right thing for the court to do is to defer to the agency that is charged with bringing the law to life. because they have the technical expertise. They are the people that we presume when there's a problem with the law, because we have those three branches of governments, right? That our presumption is that Congress is impliedly giving the agency the authority to fill in the gaps to bring the law to life. And so, as a
Okay, can I
court,
ask you-
yes,
so okay. But the heads of these agencies are appointed
yeah, we're gonna
by
get there.
okay, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so basically, they said we're going to respect the agency, and at the time when Chevron came out, it was considered a victory for Republicans. The Reagan administration won the right. And to your point about political appointees, do you know who the head of the EPA was when the Chevron ruling came out?
I don't.
It was a lady named Ann Gorsuch, whose son Neil Gorsuch was appointed to the Supreme Court by Donald Trump. So that's how big of a Republican victory this was. Like, I don't want y'all to miss what this episode is really about. This episode is really about how
Sound like
diabolical
power.
how diabolical the power grab is happening right now. Like, nobody disputed that this was a victory for Republicans. The Reagan administration won the right to pollute the shit out of the environment. And the Supreme Court said, well, we ain't never heard nobody define source of pollution emissions like this before, but the EPA did it. Congress didn't define the term. It's reasonable, so they win. And so for the 40 years after that, since 1984, courts all over the world have engaged in interpreting laws in this way, by presuming that the court's role is to be deferential to
The
the
agency.
definitions of agencies and not rewrite or overturn laws when the agency interpretation is reasonable. So, really, the question becomes much like Obamacare. If this was something that Republicans and conservative white people just sort of generally have been a champion of all this time, what has changed now?
Hmm.
I'm glad you asked.
Oh,
I'm glad
shit.
you asked. And so I feel like this is the place where our public school system failing us comes into play. So, y'all, we, even in the schools like in
We
Texas,
know you
we
didn't
all,
go to the public school system, Amber, but you don't have to shit on us who did go to the public school, okay? Anyway, keep going.
I went to public school for kindergarten and seventh grade, first of all. Thank you. um, we all learn about Brown versus Board of Education, right? We all learn about the significance of that case in issuing the landmark Supreme Court decision that separate can never be equal, and that the 14th Amendment um, prescribes separate but equal. And that was the Supreme Court case that essentially overturned legal de jure segregation here in the United States. But what people don't talk about are the geniuses behind that case. Your Charles Hamilton Houston's, your Constance Baker Motley's, Thurgood Marshall's, Robert Greenberg's, the lawyers that developed this strategy. There was a very intentional strategy developed, because prior to Brown versus Board of Education and the civil rights cases, the ways people tried to address desegregating in this country had been through which branch of government? The legislative
I don't
branch did.
I don't think any did people okay.
Remember Reconstruction? Remember the Reconstruction Acts? Remember, so every attempt at making substantial changes towards the civil rights landscape in this country prior to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund developing this strategy had been targeting the legislative branch. We need to have the lawmakers change the law.
Oh, you mean voting.
Yes, it was voting, it was Reconstruction. Remember
Oh.
how all your faves was running to the White House to meet with Kennedy and LBJ, and how All the black people put the pictures up of Kennedy next to white Jesus in their house after Kennedy died because they were just convinced that our life was over because our only hope was
The
we have
vote?
to
Is that what
we
they
have
is
to
that what they told
we
us?
have to convince the lawmakers to change
Oh,
the law. And so we need to be able to vote. So remember that had been our go-to strategy before the civil rights landscape. And so you had the architect Charles Hamilton Houston, who was a brilliant legal mind, who was like the first person to say maybe we are thinking about this the wrong way. Because these white people who are trying to uphold segregation in the South are going to do everything they can to keep us from voting. And B, even when we get the right to vote, trying to get Congress to get enough consensus to actually change the laws to do what we are trying to do is going to be nearly impossible. And so the strategy we need to employ is to go through the judicial branch, setting up test cases, right? Remember, Rosa Parks did not randomly sit on the bus. That was a test case set up, right? The student nonviolent coordinating committee students sitting at um, segregated lunch
lunch
counters and
counters.
being arrested. Those things were set up,
Organized.
organized
Organized.
to get cases into the courts, to test the strategy, to use the judicial branch to overturn problematic segregationist policies and to get a Supreme Court ruling that segregation ran afoul of the 14th Amendment. And so when you talk about what Chevron is doing, it is the co opting of that strategy by places like the Heritage Foundation as a part of their attempt to put those things back into place. They have literally taken the strategy that we use to try to get free. And why Chevron is so significant? Because now, if we put the power back in the judiciary, who gets to say what the law is again, right? On the policies that the Heritage Foundation and others like them are targeting, not the agencies, which means that they are fully prepared for people like your Bidens to win because they have targeted the judiciary for the last 2 decades and set this plan in motion so that judges now, typically conservative judges, are going to get to say what the law is, not the agencies. So even if
And
they lose, yeah,
this is the part that I, as a political neophyte, will never understand, Amber. In either case, you have the executive branch being the ones that are appointing the people in the agencies, right? So the executive branch either has a long or short arm of power, right? Like
right.
as it relates to these appointees. The executive branch is also appointing the people to the judicial branch. So again, long or short arm. Honestly, I just don't understand what the difference is because at the end of the day, as a fatalist, I believe that we will continue to lose, right? So even if we say that, even if we say that the judicial branch um, gets the power, gets the ability to interpret these things, that's not necessarily different than the agency doing it. I think at the end of the day, for Black people, I don't understand why one is more detrimental than the other. And I know that I'm being naive, but I'm like, they all the same. Like,
Well,
what is the difference to me?
as a practical matter, yes. As are they both the same to the extent that they are agents of an inequitable white supremacist government? Yes. But let me tell you
Ain't
what
that
the
a big thing
practical Yes, but let me tell you what the practical difference is in terms of why the strategy matters the most
though?
and why people prefer the judicial strategy, because judges get lifetime appointments. Heads of agencies don't. They change when the president changes, unless the president, they serve at the pleasure of the executive.
Hmm.
Okay? So when you get somebody in office like a Clarence Thomas, think about Clarence Thomas getting appointed to the Supreme Court almost 40 years ago at 40. He's gotten 40 years, right? So
We back
that
to
is
the conversation we was having at the beginning.
yes. So that is the difference. There is a level of inoculation for judicial appointees who are not subject to election, who are not subject to the same oversight. Like, how, for years, at least the last 8 or 9 years, stories have been coming out about impropriety with Clarence Thomas accepting money to get his son's private
For
school
sure.
tuition paid, accepting
Going on
trips,
vacations,
living
houses.
his best living his best life. And what has happened? What has happened? Nothing. Because there is something uniquely powerful about institutions that self-police. They are not subject to the same accountability and the same oversight as the executive, which is basically always in campaign mode because they're always running, and a Congress, which is also in campaign mode and which also depends on money. And so when
But
you
Amber,
talk about
okay,
what the
what?
difference is, that is what the difference is.
Yes, but yes, and so if you're talking about the Congress, right? And it's always about money. And there, we just talked about Maxine Waters. How many people in Congress? I don't know the statistics at all. I have to look at it. But how many people in Congress have been there for decades? Like, how many of those people cannot be unseated because they have the money, they have the power, they have the positionality. And so it's like impossible to get them out of the seats. So again, Maxine Waters has a lifetime appointment, like
Yes, yes,
effectively.
yes,
And,
yes. That's true. That is
and
true.
so I just,
Incumbency is a real thing.
yes. And so I absolutely understand your point that there is it is a more tenuous thing for people in Congress and people in the executive branch because of the election cycles that happen. But effectively, for a lot of people in Congress, that is a lifetime appointment. So I'm still at the point of not understanding. I still feel like shit is dire either way.
Yes, I just think that people need, I think for some people what is happening here is getting lost. Like, why are these
Yeah,
things significant?
yeah,
And I want people to understand that this is an attempt to take a playbook that was used to empower and give rights. They have basically taken that playbook and copied it to undo all of that work. Because remember why we went to that strategy in the first place. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. There are some people in Congress, listen, until Maxine Waters takes her last breath or decides to retire, you would be a fool to waste your money running against her. We saw the same thing here in Texas with people like Eddie Bernice Johnson. That you would it would just be flushing money, time, and resources down the toilet to run against her. She was never going to be unseated in that district. So yes, those things happen. They are real. But what we do know is that even for people like your Maxine Waters, like your Eddie Bernice Johnson, like your Mitch McConnells,
Diane Feinstein, Steinstein. Didn't she have to
Feinstein,
basically
yes,
die? And
she did die. She did. She
yeah,
did. Yeah, she had. Yes, she did. The only thing I will say about people like that is that they can be subject to political pressure in
yeah,
ways that members of the judicial branch cannot.
are not.
And we even saw that. I mean, remember, listen, who would have ever thought that Voting Rights Act would come out in 65 under a white segregationist from Texas? That was political pressure, right?
Yeah,
Um, so those are real things that historically we know can work when those actors who are subject to being elected by the public, they can change. Now, it doesn't happen often, but it can happen. But the
yeah,
judiciary is uniquely
yeah,
positioned to do things without any check on their power and without any way for them to be removed. And the fact that organizations like the Federalist Society, like the Heritage Foundation, have started setting up test case and taking the playbook of your Charles Hamilton Houston, and I want y'all to be very clear about what's happening because they are doing the same thing. Like with the civil rights activists, they did not want to take cases like police brutality, people being lynching. They used everyday stuff like people riding the bus, kids going to school. They wanted to use issues that were under the radar issues that did not stoke any controversy. It's the same thing with the Loper Bright cases that overturned Chevron. Them damn cases was about fisheries, and it was about fishing boats and whether the agency at issue had the right to put a monitor on the fishing boat and monitor what was happening in US waters and charge the fishermen for the cost of the government monitor. That's the issue. And so they are doing the same thing because the issue, they don't care about the fishing boats. They don't care about the fisheries. They want to get rid of the deferential posture of the court so that these radical, incompetent people that Trump spent the last 4 years appointing can get to say what the law is. So even when you have administrations that are not complicit with this, it's still going to be hard for them to fight against the policies that these people are trying to put in place because the judiciary can say it this is what it is.
So, Amber, here's where I'm going to be like, yes, we know what Trump did, but I think sometimes we also forget what Obama didn't do.
Facts.
Okay. So that's a
Facts.
thing. But then also, what is Biden in a position to do today? Because I don't know. You have to tell me. You the lawyer, you the ratchet lawyer on the show, not me. But what potential and possibilities are there in terms of stacking the court? Like what options could somebody like Biden have at his disposal?
So one thing to remember, a lot of people don't know why we have 9 Supreme Court justices. We have not, there's been different numbers at different times, but the reason why we have nine right now is at the time when the number nine was settled on, there were nine appellate circuits in the federal system. And so the circuits here, geographical cases, like the United States is divided into circuits. And depending on what your state is, like we're in Texas, we're in the Fifth Circuit,
Fifth Circuit.
California's in the Ninth Circuit. But now there are no longer 9 circuits, there are 11 circuits, which means that there is a very good case for adding two more justices to the court. And this is part of the problem I have with Democrats. Republicans have no problem looking you in your face, saying some stuff that is fly out of your seat, radical, don't make no sense. But a Democrat can't get on TV and just say, guys, the whole premise for like the last 50 years has been we have one justice for each circuit. Because our country has grown, we now have 11 circuits, so we should have 11 Supreme Court justices. Nobody wants to say stuff like that because we too busy talking about get out here and vote for Biden because we don't want orange Jesus. Ma'am, we got to do more than that. We got to do more than that. We got to do more than that. So that is a very easy, relatively supportable position because most people are neutral on the Supreme Court. And when you
But the
explain the
people on the
rationale,
Supreme Court ain't neutral.
ain't neutral towards us. But when you explain the rationale behind it, it makes perfect sense. There are 11 circuits, there should be 11 justices. So that's a very easy thing that Biden could champion.
But that's the thing, right? Like, I get so sick of, and this is not what we're here to talk about, but I get sick of that man tweeting things like, vote for me and I'm going to protect like your right and access to abortion. You the president today, like today on this here day. What are you going to do on this here day? And I also don't want it to seem like this is just a Republican issue. I mean, I
No,
understand that the people at the Heritage Foundation, the people who are really leading the effort behind the scenes of this are Republicans, right? Don't get me wrong. But I think we have to know what the friendly Democrats are doing or not doing, because if we don't, then we just fall into the category of blue no matter who and don't understand what we are voting for or understand who we're voting for and what they might not be doing in support of us that they could do.
absolutely. And I think it's also important for us to remember that it's not just about this being diabolical because of who's pushing it. One of the things that makes it most diabolical is because of the lack of response from the people who are supposed to be so on our side. Because this is the stuff that's not being talked about enough. The fact that the judiciary has been playing in our face, literally playing in our face the way they have. And so few Democrats who are supposed to be the champions of the marginalized, the dispossessed, the outcasts in society, they have said nothing. And I was so disappointed when the ruling came out on the Fearless Fund. Y'all, I think we mentioned it a few times on here, but y'all know that there are two black women, Arian Simone and another black venture capitalist female, that has set up a venture capital fund specifically for black women to remediate the fact that most of the venture capital funds in this country go to white people, white men
Mm-hmm.
particularly, right?
Yeah.
And I, thank God, but I momentarily forgot his name. The gentleman that set up um, the affirmative action case out of University of Texas that has been setting up all of this litigation, set up the
Oh,
lawsuit.
Bloom?
Yes, William Bloom. Set up this lawsuit to challenge it on the basis of the statute 42 USC section 1981, basically saying that they were discriminating in giving out contracts. But I want to read to y'all what that section of the law says. 42 USC 1981 says this: all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons as property, as is enjoyed by white citizens, and shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, and exactions of every kind, and to no other. Who was this law written for?
Is it the non-white people?
It was for the non-white people. And for the judiciary to play in our face and say, well, even though it says the same rights shall be enjoyed as white citizens, what the law really meant was that it applied to everyone. And I'm like, really? 42
That's not
USC
what they said.
1981 is a remedial. It is a remedial statute to remediate racism. And the 11th Circuit used a law that was designed to remediate racism to basically undo a tool of equity that gives opportunity to disadvantaged people on the basis of pretend colorblindness. And not a single Democrat has said anything about that. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me feel like I
Nobody at
can't.
all? Or you just haven't seen it? Well, you wouldn't know if you haven't
I
seen it.
I haven't seen it, but all the
That's
talking points
terrible.
I've
That's
seen have
terrible.
been about be afraid of Project 2025, not explaining to people that the law that was literally used is not even a law that was intended to apply to white people. It was intended to apply to black people, to protect black people.
And this particular case, so the Fearless Fund, I'm not conflicted in the sense that I understand the ripple effect that comes out of this, right? So you could use something like the Fearless Fund, but essentially you're just targeting affirmative action more broadly, right? It's just not the Fearless Fund, it's all that other kind of stuff. So I get that. And that's terrible. But I'm also like, we're always trying to do stuff that's just not like venture capitalism not for us. Venture capitalism show not for us. And so I'm also like, girls, like this wasn't ever for you. And you out here trying to hustle to get money and be in a system that really wants you dead. And that is hard for me to look at. So I don't know. I feel bad because I'm like, it's sad for them. But I also am like, can y'all be more creative? Because I feel like Black people are usually more creative than this. And for us to kind of be like, dang it, we can't get the money anymore because the people said you can't do it if you're targeting Black people. And it's like, do some other shit that's creative because the conservative folks would like be like, you got to have a head full of braids. Like, I don't know, but like, there's some other shit that we can do to be creative to still be able to win. And I understand it's frustrating. It's more energy, it's more labor, it's more time to be able to do that kind of stuff. But they are working hard at being creative. Like Amber said, if they're using regulations related to the fisheries to to sort of take us to a place where they climate change is not real and we all about to die from environmental racism, like we got to get more creative too.
That's true. I just think the part of the problem with the creativity is that um we're gonna have to pick a side. To the point you're
What you
making. We
mean?
either I feel like we either gonna have to decide that we want to burn this shit down,
Yes.
or we want to try to be included in it. And part of the problem is that we are doing, in many ways, the same thing as the Heritage Foundation. They're using our playbook, but we're trying to use their playbook. It's like, oh, well, the venture capitalists are racist, so we're going to start our own fund. But then the law is not allowing that. So it's like we either have to decide that we don't want no parts of the master's tools, period, and move in that direction, or we're going to have to decide that we want to be accepted and embraced, and we want a black capitalism because we want to create the same type of system they have. We just want some of us to be included. And I think
Well,
part of the reason why we're not accepted is there's a little dystopia in that, and that we're trying to be accepted instead of reimagining.
but more than 100 years of history has told us that black capitalism is not going to work either. Like, we have the receipts to show us. People have been writing and studying and researching this forever to demonstrate it's not gonna work.
Yeah, but Erica, I think that part of your problem though is, and this is really shocking for somebody who is a glass half empty type of girl. I think that you have a real rosy view of human spirits. And I think that there is a way that you do not tell the truth about the fact that part of the reason why we haven't reimagined yet is that black people like hierarchies just as much as white people. And
We do.
so we don't want liberty and justice for all. We want venture capital for some of us, right? We want venture capital for some of us because we like looking down on poor niggas too.
Oh, that's so
I
true, Amber.
mean,
You're so right.
we do.
It's
We
true.
do.
It's true.
We do. That's why 40 years ago you had black people championing Clarence Thomas while Thurgood Marshall was sitting on TV saying, please appoint a white man. I would rather be replaced by a white man than
Give
this
me the
Negro
white
right
devil that
here.
I know. Give me the
No,
white devil
he was
that
like,
I
I would
know.
rather be replaced by a white man that is down for the cause than this Hotep right here. Well, he ain't even a Hotep,
No,
but
he ain't a hotep. Mm-mm.
he,
That's
but
that's all
then
day coon. Coon,
that's
coon,
a
coon, coon, coon,
coon.
coon, coon,
Yes,
coon.
that's a coon. So, but we was out here, clapping for him. Listen, we we have to we gonna have a reckoning with ourselves about the fact that we got to get this white supremacy and this anti-blackness out of our minds as much as white people. Because if our goal is always to have access to venture capital for some of us, while flexing about that when we know that for the most part that's not going to materially change anything for most of us, we're just doing the same thing they doing.
Yeah, you're right. Which is why that's why I'm conflicted about the whole Fearless Fund, because everybody's like, "Oh my God, the Fearless Fund is terrible." And I'm like, "Mm."
And I
But
ain't
I get the
conflicted about
broader
the
ramifications. I get the
yeah,
broader
I ain't
ramifications.
conflicted about the fearless fund. What I am conflicted about is how people, especially people with legal training, are sitting up watching judicial actors take a law that just in the plain reading of the law is very clear that it's not meant to apply to the people that they're applying it to, and saying we're going to use this as a basis to decide that remedial programs that are meant to do things to rectify historical inequity can't happen, and we're going to pretend like that law is a neutral colorblind law
But
when
Amber,
they when we know it ain't.
to your point earlier, without a check on judicial power, even if everybody were saying something, that means nothing. What does that mean?
Yes.
That So,
Well, I think people need to know, like, I think educationally, there is an obligation to explain because I
sure.
feel like people get mad, but they don't really know the right thing to be mad about. They think they should be mad that the Fearless Fund can't give venture capital dollars to Black women. When what you really should be mad about is that there is a circuit in the federal appeal system that is taking 42 USC 1981 and gutting the remedial heart of it by pretending that it is a colorblind law that should apply to everybody. And that ain't it. That is not that was a law that was designed to remediate inequity, not to protect white women from being denied access to a venture capital fund for Black women. That law was not passed for them. It just wasn't.
Well, it wasn't, and I absolutely agree that the point is the broader ramifications, right? What does this all mean beyond the Fearless Fund? And I think the thing
Right.
that's most interesting to me is it's never what's on the surface. Like, we have to really understand the shit is never on the surface. It is always what is behind the scenes. You always have to ask the five whys when you're dealing with this stuff. It is never just about clean air. It is never just about whatever the topic du jour is on TV or that make it the case is. And that's why their moves are so diabolical. That's why their
Hmm.
moves are just, and in like when people talking about Jay-Z playing chess, no, the Heritage Foundation is really the only ones out here playing chess. Like,
Facts.
they really are.
Facts. Facts.
And it is just, and because they put the ball into motion so many decades ago, right? We're 40 years behind. So
Yes.
even if we're like, what are we going to do? Baby, you 40 years behind. Like, it's a couple generations in order to be able to catch up
Yes.
to what these people doing. And so
Yes.
that leaves me feeling powerless.
No, I understand. I think that for us, the biggest thing that we can do is not keep going through the political cafeteria in elementary school and just accepting stuff that people put on our plate because it's coming from people that we like or that entertain us or that have the same skin color as us or that can put
Why are
alliterative
you talking
words
about Jasmine
together.
Crockett? That lady didn't do anything to us. Why? I
I'm
don't
not
even know
I'm
why
not
you brought
just
her up.
talking about I'm not even just talking about her, but I'm just saying I feel like we got to stop accepting stuff because it's put on our plate because we are missing the forest for the trees. And also, and I feel like I'm about to go into respectable Negro auntie hood.
Oh shit. We just talked about that. Like, why are you
I know,
going?
but this is why education is so important, y'all. We can't we can't overturn a government we don't understand. We can't change what we do not understand. So we got to step our civics up. You know
Political
what I'm saying?
education. Political
We
education.
we got to step our civics game up. You know what I'm saying? Because this kind of stuff is happening and people be hearing stuff like Chevron Doctrine and they going on about their business like what that don't got nothing to do with me. Well, it's got everything to do with you because when you couple Chevron with the way that the Supreme Court has just expanded the definition of presidential immunity, well, what happens when you have branches of government in cahoots with each other, right? So what
They already
happens
do.
that's my point. So now if you have an unchecked judiciary, if you have a rogue Congress, like we've seen this before, remember how Congress was shut down, or remember how when Barack Obama put Merrick Garland up for nomination for the Supreme Court, and Congress just said, "Well, shit, we don't want that, so we're not going to give him a hearing." What happens when you have the rogue branches conspiring together? And so now you have a Supreme Court precedent that says that we are going to take immunity to the outer limit. And we are going to presume that if the president says he's doing something in his, executive
Official
function,
capacity.
in his official capacity, yes, that he should be immune. Well, if I knock the hell out of you and I say I'm doing it in my official capacity, do y'all have to presume that I should be immune for that? Like it it is happening right in front of our face. And it's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. And you kind of introduced the presidential immunity piece because I know we're getting to the end of our time, Amber, but tell us more about the implications that are under the covers that we don't see related to presidential immunity beyond just the shit that Trump has already done, for example.
Well, obviously, we know that Trump has charges pending in multiple jurisdictions right now. And so this case is a humongous blow to the
Those
ability
prosecutions.
of those prosecutors to continue with that, especially the convictions likely happening before the election. I mean, that's all but out the window. Even in places like New York, where he's already been convicted, now with the appellate implications of the convictions and all of that stuff, it will not be settled before November. So there's that. But I want to also talk about something that is more diabolical because remember there was already immunity. So immunity is in the Constitution. So they didn't invent anything. Um but now the question becomes, what do we do when the outer limit of that immunity is tested? So for example, the president has the right to issue executive orders. Um, and those executive orders are not subject to the same bill on Capitol Hill song. Like they don't have to be
Same
voted
oversight
on.
doesn't exist for them.
Right. But it has the same effect while that president is in office, right? So what happens when the president abuses his power to write executive orders? What
Why
happens?
don't Biden give it a try? This is what I'm talking about, Amber. I'm sorry, I'm yelling in my house. But my point is, Biden could actually give this shit a try and see what happens. Like, put some skin in the game, bro. Write some of
Abortion
these
is legal in the United States.
period at the end.
Student loan debt is canceled in the United
Gone,
States.
gone.
Okay?
That's what I'm
You
saying.
cannot consider somebody's criminal history in whether they are eligible for public housing in the United States.
Yeah, this is why I can't take the Democrats seriously, because if they go mess around and have these sorts of rulings, put it back on them. See how far they're willing to take the shit. You have however many months until the election to test this shit out. Do it. And I'm just so tired because they won't ever. They are so weak.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I agree with you. I agree completely. And this idea that this is what really bothers me the most is this whole the Democrats are Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. And it's like, go low.
Fight her. I want to fight her.
Go low. Go low. Okay? Go low. Okay? Cuz they going high and people can't afford to buy eggs. They going low and people can't afford to buy eggs and people can't afford to pay their bills. Okay? And black people are still out here serving life sentences for possessing,
Bullshit.
questionable quantities of drugs 30 and 40 years ago. So let's go low. Let's just see how that works out. Because going high ain't been working for us. Going
But
high ain't been working. Mhm.
they lack the political courage to do so. So that's why I'm frustrated. That's why I'm frustrated. I know we were supposed to talk about Project 2025 and I want us to. So can we come back and talk about Project 2025 because I think there's so much in there. There's so
Yeah.
much.
And probably in some ways that should be its own episode, but really it is a policy vision to undo two specific errors in the United States. Because white people, and not white people,
Don't tell
white
people about it. We're
supremacists.
gonna tell them about it when we have us another show
Oh,
about it.
okay. Yeah, we're gonna have another show, but I just want y'all to know that, who child, it's hard out here for a pimp. Okay. So yeah,
Uh,
we're gonna do another show. I haven't told Erica this because I don't want to be judged,
Oh
but
shit.
I printed out Project 2025 and I had it
It's
bound at Kinko's.
989 pages or something like that?
It is not when you have the little four squares. It's only like 200 and something pages. When you have 4 pages put on one page, they can do that for you at Kinko's. Like anyway, I've been reading Project 2025 and I'm gonna
You gonna
read
read
it
it
on
on the beach,
vacation.
Amber?
Yes.
I love that for you. Whatever makes you happy, boo. I just, if it's reading Project 2025, me, I read smut on the beach. I be reading black erotica. But you read whatever you want to read when you out there. Because we just built different. It's fine. Me, I'm on the
And I
smut though.
no,
Mhm.
I am. I just had, they take 4 pages and print it on one page, so now it's only
That's
like
wild.
200 pages. So
And it
yeah,
probably cost her $200. Look, that's how we know she rich too. Because she didn't
it
pay.
cost me $98
You
to
crazy as
have it
hell.
bound
You
together.
crazy as hell. Yeah, I
It
know it
did.
did. I know it
It
did.
did. It
Hmm.
did. And the man at Kinko's was judging me. He didn't say nothing, but he kept looking at me like,
Ma'am, why is your luggage over 50 pounds? Well, I'm carrying my binder of Project 2025. Okay.
yeah.
Well, you know what, Amber? I'm not here to judge you. Because again, don't judge me when I'm I'm gonna put you onto some smut though. I'm gonna put you on.
No, and I skipped. I was supposed to read the Kerner Commission report, and then I skipped that because that's old.
You
But I've been
okay.
wanting to read the Kerner Commission report for a while.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I'm I'm gonna read it, guys.
Well, you know what? I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you. And I hope that the homework is not for people to read Project 2025 because y'all, it's 900 pages. So do not
Is
assign that as homework, Amber.
it literally is. No, that is not the homework. It is summer. We are on summer break. And so that is not the homework. But let me tell you what the homework is going to be.
Okay.
I'm going to call a little audible. I am going
Mm,
to, we're going to post a YouTube. We're going to post a Civics 101. That was already, y'all was supposed to listen to the last episode that was a throwback to civics. But we're going to post the Schoolhouse Rocks videos. We need to step our civics up so
mm.
we can know
Yeah,
how these three branches of government work. Watch it, catch up, and share the broken social media with 3 friends, okay? That all ought to take you about 10 minutes. So don't be complaining. Don't do that because that's not God's will. If I can read Project 2025 on the beach, you can watch a YouTube video. We all we got.
that's fair. That's fair. And y'all, you can look around and see all the stuff happening and the stuff that they tell you is gonna happen. And you might decide, like, it can be easy to decide that it's blue no matter who for you. I get it. I would just encourage us to understand that the policies that we're seeing happening over time are the result of concerted efforts by organized people. And so in order for us to be able to combat the things that we're seeing, guess what? We also have to be organized. And organizing starts with political education. And we cannot fight against this capitalist mandate that makes us too busy to be able to pay attention. Um, unless we are starting to take a little bit of time to just learn a little bit. So, like Amber said, a little bit of school rock here, there, schoolhouse rock, so that we can learn more about what's going on in our national and local and state governments. And we're not asking anybody to be an expert on electoral politics because we're not. But we have to have a better understanding about what's going on where we live and what we want to be going on where we live. So it's easy to hear the headlines and be disenchanted. I know I am, but hope is a muscle. And for it to get stronger, you have to put in the work. Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Brokish.
All right, good people. Thanks for listening to Brokish. For more episodes, visit us at brokish.com or subscribe, and Brokish will get direct deposited into your favorite podcast app on the 1st and 15th. Share Brokish with your friends and join the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Music for Brokish is Come Get Some by Blank and Kit. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.